In 1829, Harriet Powell came to Syracuse, New York. She was a young lady, very light-skinned, straight hair. She looked like she was a servant of the Davenport family. And little did people know at first in Syracuse that she was enslaved. When people learned that she was enslaved, it was through the black workers in the hotel that the Davenports were staying in. And so they asked her, you know, how is it to work for these people? And they found out she was their slave. And they said, we in Syracuse can get you free if you want to be free. And Harriet Powell said, no, I will not run away from slavery. And they asked, why? Why wouldn't you want to be free? And she said, the Davenports own my mother and father. And if I run away, they will punish them for what I do. I cannot run. But then the people in Syracuse, the abolitionists there, found out that her master, Mr. Davenport, was going to sell her. And they went and told her again, you will never be free. He's going to sell you. Let us help you run. And she decided that she would try for her freedom. One night when the Davenports were giving a party in the hotel, Harriet snuck out of the building to a waiting carriage. She had already thrown her possessions, the little bit that she owned, out the back window where they had caught it and put it in the carriage. They drove her around and around and then drove her out of Syracuse, New York, to Garrett Smith's home. And a big, rich abolitionist that used his fortune to help people get out of slavery. There she met Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who was a teenager at the time. Garrett Smith was her uncle. And she sat up all night talking and learning about slavery from Harriet Powell. And that's where Elizabeth Cady Stanton decided to dedicate her life to helping get people free from slavery. She finally got to Canada with the help of abolitionists along the route going north to freedom, and she ended up hiding in a home there of abolitionists. But she wasn't safe. We think that when those who were enslaved got to Canada, they were safe. They weren't. They had bounties on their head. She had a bounty on her head. And Canadians often would return people to slavery. They would tell on them. They would capture them, and they would get the money. And Davenport was not going to let her go. He kept sending bounty hunters up into Canada looking for her as he found out she was free. And the family that she was staying with in Canada hid her in the attic over and over and over again. Davenport tried to find her for over a year, and he finally went broke, which was one of the reasons he was going to sell her for money. And she was finally free. Harriet Powell is buried in a Kingston, Ontario cemetery. She ended up getting married and having 12 children. Ow! And she lived out her life as a free woman. The story of Harriet Powell in 1829. Thank you.